A judge, a bishop, and a building inspector walk into a bar. They are good friends, and as the three occupations tend towards vanity, they begin talking about who amongst them is the greatest. The judge says, well, when I walk into my courtroom, the bailiff says, all rise, and everyone stands up and calls me Your Honor. The bishop says, that's great, they stand in Your Honor. The people who come into my church and they want to have an audience with me, they kneel at my feet and kiss my ring and call me Your Eminence. The building inspector looks at them and says, I think I have you both beat. When people walk into my permit office and I explain to them what is required on their project with the new energy standards, they put their hands in their face and they say, oh my God. My name is Mark Bond. CESC is a almost 30-year-old organization that's been doing energy efficiency in local residential, commercial buildings. We have a variety of different energy efficiency programs. Our goal is to help the smallest, most vulnerable be more energy efficient. There's been a book I'm reading recently called The Sixth Extinction. Everybody heard of that book? I won the Pulitzer last year for general nonfiction. And it had some points in there that I didn't quite know about before I read it. Interesting book. One of them is how our oceans and atmosphere interact. And so the more we do and the more greenhouse gases we put into our atmosphere, how that affects our ocean. One particular point is that because we're putting so much CO2 into our atmosphere, our oceans are 30% more acidic than they have been since the 1800s. So there's a lot of effects on how we use energy in our world and in our environment. And we're doing some things today that are going to cause problems for the future, or even now. I'm having a hard time with this. How can we impact our future in the built environment anyway to make it less impactful on our climate? What would that look like? One thing would be we'd have solar panels on our buildings and homes. We wouldn't use fossil fuels. We wouldn't have a transportation system that's based on gas. We would be using electrified vehicles, electrified trains. We would have our neighborhoods and communities connected in microgrids. We would have electric appliances. We would have connected devices that have the ability for the occupants to control how we use energy, as well as to send demand and response signals when the load becomes too high. We would have battery storage to manage the load patterns. This is the goal that we're trying to get to. However, there are some challenges to get that way, and there's a variety of steps we can take. In the built environment, there's some steps that we're calling energy standards. There's a 3-step plan. We're about to walk into step 2 of the step plan towards 2020, net zero energy goals. The idea behind this is pretty simple. Every new energy standard, we're going to lower our energy savings until the point where it's so low that our renewable generation on a building can cover the load. This is the goal of energy standards. This is the why they're doing it. We're moving this forward. Everybody's seen this graph. This is a pretty famous graph about how energy standards, Title 24 particularly, have impacted California versus the rest of the nation. I'm an energy efficiency guy. I really get excited about numbers. So I went looking for reports to kind of show out a little bit more specifically how we did this. Where are these numbers coming from? One of the reports I found is from the CEC. $74 billion in utility bill savings. That's crazy. I went looking for some other reports, and then I found one that was a little bit different than the other ones. There's this guy named Mr. Levinson. I don't know if anybody's seen this report. He wrote it end of last year as a working paper. And his analysis is a little bit different than what I've been told and what that graph before just showed. It's kind of interesting that he's saying there's no evidence that home constructed since California Institute of Building Energy Codes use less electricity today. I don't know that much about statistics. I'm not an economist, but maybe it's worth it to take a look at Mr. Levinson's reasoning and kind of understand where he comes up with these numbers, because that's a very different story. So Mr. Levinson wrote another paper a few years back, Lessons for the Rest of the World, or Not, and he gave 3 reasons why residential electricity consumption per capita in the last 40 years is different in California than the rest of the country. And he says it's all a coincidence. It's not a correlated result. Okay, so maybe we should look at some of his reasons he put out on how this coincidence took place. So his first coincidence is that over the last 30 or 40 years, there's been a mass migration from the north, east, to the south and west. And outside of California, people have been buying bigger homes and spending more money on AC and pools. And this is one reason why it's a coincidence. It's a population shift. Okay, see what else he has. His other reason is that California has a temperate climate. Most of the nation has hot, humid summers and cold, frigid winters, which means as incomes go up, people spend more money on cooling their home in the summer with air conditioning. In California, with our temperate climate, income and how much money we're spending on air conditioning is not related. So that's another reason Mr. Levinson gives. Okay, is there anything else? Lastly is demographics. Mr. Levinson says that all households across the country have gone down in size. However, they've gone down in size less in California. So that half a person is making an impact on how households use energy. The larger the household size, the less energy per capita people are using. Okay. His point in his paper is 90% of the energy savings seen in, again, the prior graph, is a coincidence and not correlated. So, in conclusion, we're done today. Kellen and Edgar, thanks for inviting everybody. We don't need these energy standards. It's going to happen anyway. Okay, maybe not. Maybe we should look at that this is a narrow study and it's missing some things. And there's a great blog post by Stephen Nadell of the ACAAA if anybody wants to go into more of the details.
Was it funded by Donald Trump?
No. So I'm not a statistician. I cannot say that his very specific narrow study is true or false. But I can say that it was a narrow study, and there's some things that he missed. One of them is it was residential only and electricity only. I know in California, natural gas is how people use energy in their homes. If you have a study that does not look at natural gas and how that has changed over the past 30 or 40 years, you're going to miss the impact of the energy standards. That's one particular area that the study misses. Another one is he didn't look at commercial buildings. Many people in this room know that our energy standards are really focused primarily, much more heavily on the commercial sector. So this graph shows energy use intensity. It tracks pretty well with how the building standards have gone into place. If you don't look at commercial energy or the commercial sector in a study on energy standards, again, you're going to miss a lot of the impact of those energy standards. And lastly, California is not in a bubble with our energy standards. California is actually a leader that is modeled by other states on our energy standards. So it is not something where it's California doing one thing and all the other states are doing something else. Many of the other states, or many of the appliance manufacturers who sell products in multiple states, are not just making two different products to sell in different places. They're making one product going to the highest standards. So all this being said, there are some reasons why this narrow study is not maybe totally the full picture. CESC is, again, an energy efficiency organization. We run a lighting program called Smart Lights. We do small commercial direct install energy efficiency work. Our goals for our program are based on claimable energy savings. We take energy code baseline and then less the new energy efficiency technologies we install. As energy code updates impacted, baselines go up, which means our programs has less claimable savings for our goals, which makes it really hard to do our work. So energy standards for us are a challenge. Let me give you an example. This is the story of a UC Berkeley student store. Anybody been there? It's right across from campus on University. I'm sure there's a few Cal grads who spent way too much money in this store. Really old lights, T12 fluorescent lights, incandescent down lights. All they had is an on-off switch for controls. As everybody in this room knows, none of that is to code. So for us to bring this building, to bring in more energy efficient lights, we can get them just to code by putting in T8 lights, CFLs, and some occupancy sensors. Kind of. But we're not going to do that because, again, we want those claimable savings. So what we did is we installed LEDs, LED retrofit kits, T-LEDs, screw-in lamps. Now, pre-2013 code, we would have been able to claim a certain amount of savings. Post-2013 code, our claimable savings, again, dropped, because it's only above code, by 35%. Also, we had to add costs, because we had to add in advanced lighting controls. We had to have an acceptance technician verify that those controls worked correctly. So because of our program, we give rebates based on claimable energy savings, we reduced the rebate to the customer, and we added cost. So fortunately, we have a great staff, and my colleague Jen did really good work with this customer and is able to move the project forward and get the largest savings available for this customer. But it does make it a little bit difficult to do projects when we're trying to help a customer, a small business customer, fix something, put in more efficient lights or more efficient equipment that they don't think it's broken, and we're trying to move that project forward. So how did 2016 energy standards going to impact an energy efficiency program like Smart Lights? Well, we're already in the new normal. The biggest change for us was the code permit triggers for the smaller projects, the advanced lighting control requirements. That was a big deal. July 1st, 2014, a lot of things changed for how direct install programs move things forward on small projects. So it would be great, though, if, for our perspective, it would be great if the smallest projects didn't have to trigger code. It would be great if the compliance paperwork was a little bit easier to go through. It wasn't so complicated. We're an energy efficiency program. We really focus on demand reduction. It would be great if we could reduce demand in space enough that controls aren't really required, or at least to the extent they are for a much larger project. That would be great to see. So what happens in 2016 energy standards? Well, a lot of these things are going to go through. Compliance is going to go, permit triggers can go from 40 fixtures, non-res lighting, to 70 for interior. That doesn't seem like that big of a difference, but for a program like our program that works with the smallest businesses, that will probably almost double the amount of businesses we can work with without having to charge a lot of costs. And there's a really exciting new path that I'm sure is going to be talked about a little bit later today for compliance paperwork. This is a pilot compliance path for projects that do trigger code, that if we go into an existing, we go into a space, if we can take the existing power down by 50% in retail, office, or hotels, then there's only one control requirement, and it's only 35% in other spaces. And that control requirement is just an auto shut-off, so a time clock or something like that. We feel that that's going to be a really great opportunity for our programs to get into many projects and reduce the amount of extra costs we have to add for lighting controls. Same as in the 2013 standards, if we can reduce lumen power density by 85% or less of what's required, we also have some reduced controls. Lumen power density is going down in the 2016 energy standards by about 0.1 watts per square foot, but we feel with the new LED technology, it's going to be something that's going to be pretty easy to read. CEC is an energy efficiency organization. We're out here to save the world. We just do it by changing out light bulbs. There's a lot of great resources available. Energy Code ACE is one that we use quite a bit, and you can even call the CEC directly if you want to. Their phone number's up there. So we encourage you to reach out to your customers, reach out to constituents, learn about the new energy standards. It's, again, we feel a pretty smooth shift, at least in non-res lighting. Some of the other changes are not too big either, and it shouldn't be too hard to move forward. So thanks. And in our perspective, building inspectors are the greatest. Thanks.
There might be some questions online.
I have a question. It's kind of, could you go back to your slide where you talked about the new regulations for lighting?
I don't know if I can go backwards. Oh, maybe this one's right. This one?
Yes, thank you. I mean, I think this is a great example of the CEC being responsive to the lighting industry and trying to make things simpler. However, when I look at the slide, not to play devil's advocate, I still see multiple triggers. I see a 70, I see a 50%, except sometimes it's 35%, and then I see less than 85%, and then I see 20. So there's still like 4 kind of different number sets you have to like check against.
There's way more than 4.
Yeah, and there's, and right, this is your example. And so it'd be great to figure out in collaboration with the CC ways to, when these parameters and boundaries are set, to make them, common across, space types and across type of zones, and, as much as we can make them one number wherever possible.
I wish to. I do want to say a shout out to Gene Thomas of Ecology Action and many other lighting efficiency contractors and professionals who have really pushed the CEC to make compliance easier for many of these projects and to reduce kind of the threshold. You're right. Compliance is still incredibly complex.
Yeah, and the detail.
Yes. However, even though it is complex, I do feel that more flexibility has been added to the compliance pathways. Yeah.
Because old building official, I didn't enforce those regulations on small mom and pop.
What city are you in?
Don't answer that.
But honestly, it was too onerous for some little mom and pop to probably go out and listen in 6 months anyway. So
I totally agree.
Required the mandatories, but other than that, nothing.
We're a program funded by the CPUC utilities. We need to follow certain requirements. If you can let me know what city you're in, we're going to double the amount of projects we do in your city. But your particular view is not shared by every jurisdiction, unfortunately. But I totally agree with you.
But I would say this is for the problem here and elsewhere. I've worked in a bunch of places in the country, and sometimes our policies do become so onerous that we get real fragmented implementation and enforcement. So it's not the fault of the enforcer.
Yeah. And I believe in the energy standards. I go back to 1970 when we built it. Monstrous houses with 100% glazing and no insulation. So these are necessary. It's just this got to the point of being ridiculous on small businesses.
Hallelujah. I knew those building officials were the greatest.
Yeah.